Hello, I'm Tom Hudson, Executive Director of the South Carolina School Improvement Council. Welcome to today's training, The Basics of Organizing an SIC. This is the first in a series of 3 video training modules on the roles and responsibilities of SICs. The series also includes the basics of operating an SIC and basic SIC duties. These videos were created as a companion to the SESIC handbook, This is Your SIC, a handbook for effectiveness. This handbook is available in both English and Spanish and can be downloaded from our website. You can also request printed copies from your SIC district contact. Let's start today's training by reviewing a couple of key characteristics of school improvement councils. First, SICs are broad-based. They're founded on the idea that schools make better decisions when they consider input from all groups that have an interest in their school. That's why SICs are required to include representatives of parents, educators, community members, and in the case of high school, students. It's important to remember, however, that an SIC's role is advisory only. SIC members don't have the power to run their school. That's the principal's job. What SIC members do have, however, is an opportunity to influence school decision-making through their input and feedback. SICs are focused on school improvements that will impact student achievement, and they participate in the development of the school's 5-year improvement plan, implement plan activities and programs, and monitor and report on progress toward school improvement goals. Finally, SICs are unique from other school organizations such as a PTA or PTO in that they're required by law. Every K-12 public school in South Carolina must convene a school improvement council. If all the voices aren't heard, the whole story isn't told. Or as it can be said, if you're not at the table, you can wind up on the table. SICs, through their responsibilities given to them through the state legislature, have a responsibility to have a seat at the table in formulating plans to help their school achieve successful outcomes for students and better the futures of the school community. So who is considered a school stakeholder entitled to a seat at the SIC table? The first group of stakeholders represented on an SIC is parents. Any parent who currently has at least one child enrolled in the school is eligible to serve. And on an SIC, the term parent is not restricted to a biological parent. A legal guardian, foster parent, family member, or other adult who is a primary caregiver for a child is eligible to serve as a parent representative. The second stakeholder group represented on an SIC is teachers. Any teacher who is currently assigned to a school is eligible to be a teacher representative. Assistant principals or school staff should not be used to fill in these positions. If an SIC wants additional type of school personnel represented on their council, it can create ex-officio positions for them. And we'll talk about how to do that a little bit later in this training. Students are another important school stakeholder group. Any school that serves grades 9 or above must include student representatives on its SIC. Elementary and middle schools are not required by law to include student representatives, but they can create such positions if their bylaws call for those. Members of the community are also considered important school stakeholders. When we talk about community members in relation to an SIC, we're talking primarily about citizens who don't currently have a child enrolled in the school and who aren't employed by the school district. School administrators are obviously another important school stakeholder. At a minimum, the principal is always represented on an SIC. Well, now that we've identified the different types of stakeholders that must be included on an SIC, let's take a look at how they're selected. There are 3 types of SIC members: elected, appointed, and ex officio. Let's take elected representatives first. Parent, teacher, and student representatives are all elected members of the School Improvement Council. Parents are elected by parents, teachers by teachers, and students by other students. All elected members serve staggered 2-year terms. The term staggered simply means that your elected members' terms of office should not all start at the beginning of the same school year. Only about half of your parents, teachers, and students should be up for election each year. The other half should be returning to the SIC for the second of their 2-year term. Keeping terms staggered is an important way that SICs can help sustain their progress from year to year. If you need help getting started in staggering the terms of your elected members, There's a detailed example in the SIC Elections Guide, which is part of the Elections Toolkit on our website, or you can contact our office for more assistance. Now, SICs have some flexibility in deciding when and how to hold elections for parents, teachers, and students. State law requires only that SIC elections be held every year by October 15th. Traditionally, most SICs have held their elections in August or September. We've noticed, however, that more schools are holding their elections in late spring. This gives SICs time to plan over the summer and hit the ground running in August. If your SIC decides to hold spring elections, it's important that you give those who will be transitioning to your school in the fall an opportunity to participate. Once your SIC finds a time that works well for elections, stick with it and put it in your bylaws. It's important to hold elections every year, even if candidates are running or unopposed. Yearly elections are required by state law, in part to ensure that the terms of elected members remain staggered. If after calling for nominations you find that you only have enough candidates to fill positions that are open, go ahead and hold the election anyway. Provide a place on your ballot for write-in votes. This will protect your SIC from any later complaint that a parent, teacher, or student representative wasn't properly elected. Once your SIC decides when to hold its elections, it will need to decide on the best method for nominating and electing candidates. It's up to the SIC, in partnership with its school, to decide which procedures will work best. The most important thing is that they are fair and encourage high levels of participation. Once you settle on how you want to hold your elections, you should add this information to your SIC bylaws. With respect to parent elections, we've noticed that participation tends to go up significantly when SICs hold elections during times that large number of parents are already at the school, such as registration day, back to school night, or even at a football game. If you go this route, it's a good idea to keep the ballot box open in the school office for a few days after the event, so that folks who couldn't attend still have a chance to vote. Teachers commonly hold their nominations and elections during faculty meetings. If the timing is right, student elections can be held at the same time as student council elections. If you do this, we strongly recommend that SIC representatives be listed as separate positions on that ballot. When schools assign the top vote getters in the student council election to double duty as student SIC representatives, they can eliminate valuable leadership opportunities for other students. If you need additional guidance on when or how to hold an SIC election, or if you'd like to see samples of parent nomination forms, ballots, and candidate information sheets, please look through the SIC Elections Toolkit on our website, or call our office and speak to a member of our staff. Now let's turn to appointed SIC members. Only one stakeholder group, community members, are appointed. They're appointed by the principal in consultation with the SIC. Unlike an elected member whose term of office is set by law, the SIC determines the term for an appointed community member. Many SICs adopt for a 2-year term for appointed members, so that's at the same time as elected members' terms. If your SIC is finding it hard to get community members to make a 2-year commitment, you may want to consider reducing the term to 1 year. Whatever you decide, it should be included in your SIC's bylaws. Now, community members not only give voice to citizens who are not otherwise connected with your school, these members can also link your school and your SIC to valuable resources. If, for example, your school is focusing on improving literacy, consider appointing someone from the local public library or a professor at a nearby college who specializes in literacy. Or think about individuals who can serve as a bridge between your school and a particular group that your school wants to reach. For example, if your school wants to reach out to Spanish-speaking families, you might seek out a pastor from a church or the director of a local nonprofit who already has a strong relationship with this group. The third and final type of member on an SIC is the ex-officio member. Ex-officio members are SIC members because they hold another position in the school or community that the SIC wants represented on their council. The principal must always be an ex-officio member, but SICs can create additional ex-officio positions simply by listing them in their local bylaws. Some examples include Teacher of the Year, the immediate past chair of the council, the parent liaison or Title I coordinator, or the PTA/PTO president. Well, now that we've talked about the three types of SIC members, elected, appointed, and ex officio, let's review how many of each type of member an SIC must have, starting with elementary and middle schools. State law requires that an SIC have at least 2 elected parents and 2 elected teachers. As mentioned earlier, elementary and middle schools are not required to have student members. State law gives us a formula to determine the number of appointed members required on an SIC. Essentially, an SIC must always have half as many appointed community members as the total number of elected members. Ex officio members are not included in this calculation. So in our example here, the SIC has a total of 4 elected members, 2 parents and 2 teachers. You divide 4 in half and you get 2. So this SIC has 2 appointed community members. And finally, as reviewed before, every SIC must have a minimum of 1 ex officio member, the principal. The minimum number of members on SICs at high schools serving grades 9 or above is slightly different because these SICs also have student members. SICs at these schools must have at least 2 elected parents, 2 elected teachers, and 2 elected students. Because the total number of elected representatives in the example here is 6, the number of appointed community members increases to 3. The minimum number of ex officio members remains at 1 for the principal. Now, while state law limits how small an SIC can be, it doesn't limit how large it can be. Your SIC can increase the number of elected members on your council simply by amending your bylaws. Deciding whether to do so will require your SIC to balance 2 considerations. On the one hand, you want to have enough SIC members to represent the diverse interests of your school. For example, an SIC at a school serving grades K through 8 may need more elected parent and teacher members than a school serving grades 7 to 8. On the other hand, you don't want your SIC to get so large that it becomes unmanageable. An SIC with 60 members, for example, and there are some, will find it difficult to get a quorum or hear from all of its members at its meetings. It's also important to keep in mind that when you increase the number of elected members on your council, you will likely have to increase the number of appointed members in order to maintain a balance of half as many appointed members to elected members. And if your SIC wants to increase the number of ex officio members, it can do so simply by listing them in the local bylaws. Regardless of how many members your SIC decides to have, the number of each type of member should always be listed in the bylaws. Once your SIC has assembled all of its members for the current school year, one of the first orders of business should be electing SIC officers. SICs usually have 3 officers, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. SICs don't handle funds directly or maintain bank accounts in their own name, so they don't have a treasurer. SICs can create additional officer positions by adding them to the bylaws. An SIC may prefer to have 2 co-chairs rather than a single chair. For larger SICs, it may be helpful to create an additional vice chair position or another officer position that is designated for an elected student. SIC officers serve a term of 1 year, so your SIC will need to elect new officers every year. Now, there's no limit on how many terms an officer can serve, however, unless the SIC's bylaws state otherwise. An elected or appointed member is eligible to hold SIC office unless the bylaw provides otherwise. Principals may not chair an SIC or hold another officer position. The final topic we're going to address in this training module is reporting your SIC membership information to the online SIC member network. State law requires that SICs report their membership information to the state office by November 15th. The first step in the membership reporting process is to collect all member contact information and deliver it to the school principal. The SIC chair is ultimately responsible for seeing that this task is completed. The next step is to create an account for the school on the member network and obtain an account password. Because only individuals with a school email address can open an account, It's ultimately the responsibility of the principal to see that this task is completed. Then the principal or a designee can use the password to access the account and enter the required information. There are two ways to access the SIC Member Network homepage. You can access it directly at sic.ed.sc.edu/network, or you can use the quick link to the member network on our homepage at sic.sc.gov. Principals, please remember that the password for your school's account will be disabled on July 1st each year for security reasons. You must then visit the member network at the beginning of each school year to request a new password. Although only individuals with a password for your school or district can view your members' contact information, any member of the public can use the View the Members Read-Only function on the member network to view other important information about SICs. You can access this function on the left side of the member network homepage. Using the Read-Only function, you can view the names of SIC members that have been posted at schools across the state. You can also check the compliance status of every SIC. Schools that submit an SIC membership report that complies with state law by November 15th will have a green check mark in their compliance column. Schools that submit a report but either miss the deadline or don't report the required number or type of SIC members will have a blue asterisk. And schools that don't report their membership at all will have a red X in their compliance column. So if you want to make sure that the public sees a green check mark in your school's compliance column, make sure that you report your membership correctly by November 15th. The read-only function of the member network will also allow you to view SIC annual reports to the parents posted by other SICs across the state. Looking through these reports is a great way to learn about what other SICs are doing and to get ideas for your own SIC report to the parents. If you need assistance using the member network or with any aspect of the membership reporting process, you can find more information on our website or in the SIC handbook, or you can contact our office. So this concludes our session on the basics of organizing an SIC. Now here is a list of some of the additional resources that are available through our office. These include the SCSIC website at sic.sc.gov with free downloadable materials, information, and links, our electronic newsletter, Council News, and periodic email updates in the loop on topics relevant to councils, our very active Facebook and Twitter sites, and a variety of training opportunities statewide and ongoing technical assistance via telephone, email, and on-site visits. Thank you very much for joining me as part of this training. Be sure to check out the other videos in this series, the basics of operating an SIC and basic SIC duties. And keep an eye out for information about our statewide SIC annual meeting and Riley Award celebration held in March of every year. We also encourage all of our SICs to share their successes with us. We will publicize your work and can use your stories to teach and encourage other SICs in their work. And finally, thank you for donating your time, your talents to support quality public education in South Carolina. This is Tom Hudson. See you next time.